Hi there and welcome to this video. Today is about more coding stuff, and really it is not about any new features, but I restructured the whole Python program or a Python code, um, yeah, for a number of reasons. So you will see me also struggle here a little bit because I'm still learning a lot of those concepts. Um, yeah, but I will just take you on the way, and it's also a little bit of a reminder video if I start a new project that I know what I was doing and why I was doing that. So let's jump into it. I have now here the Git graph, and you see I was quite busy yesterday, or yeah, on 3rd of July. And you see here that I did a lot of commits. So what did I do? The package here, the structure has changed quite dramatically. It has now, well, let's start first. What was the purpose? Well, I was reading about virtual environments, which are a great way to deal with if you're coding for multiple projects. They have maybe different requirements for dependencies. A dependency is that you need a library, for example, in a current version, or in a specific version, I should say, a specific version with one program you're coding, and the other one does need a different version. And what do? You have only one computer, right? So you install your Python, you install your whatever, your Conda environment, whatever. But the thing is that virtual environments solve this issue. They solve it in that way that they create like a little tiny box where you could put a specific set of dependencies in and then use that for a particular program. So I went on to the journey, and I really want to point out this guy here, right? He's doing a fabulous job of writing very comprehensive text for stuff like these. I was not following his advice fully, but I can't wait to read all his posts because they're really entertaining and also very comprehensive. So you're getting things from that. So a big shout out to Mike Hulse. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but here, virtual environments for absolute beginners, right? So I was reading through there, and it all makes sense. It all makes sense to create virtual environments, and yeah, this is pretty popular. The install virtual env. This is a package which deals with your virtual environments. But then I remembered a friend of mine telling me that, or even I had also a little bit of the possibility to check another way to do that, which is poetry. Poetry is a package which I really love. It makes your dependency management a lot easier than with virtual env. So I was searching for the the difference between those two. And this brought me to this site, and this was the main thing I was using then, because this guy said in a nutshell that he used virtual env for quite a while, and thank God there's poetry now. And part of that has to deal is concerned with the fact that you can easily relocate your projects after you have created them. So projects meaning your virtual environments. And you could do this all with virtual env, but it's a lot more a tedious and repetitive task. And you can do a lot more in poetry. And it also seems a little bit easier to me, at least. So, what I will not show, well, not in this video. I don't know if you guys request that. For sure, I can do that, but I think it's a tiny minority of my viewers who are interested into the specifics of that. But I will just tell you the basics. So if you install Poetry, you can, for example, just create a poetry file, which is basically initializing a poetry. They also have a pretty nice demo project. Let's just search for poetry once. And yeah. No, Python is enough. So poetry in Python. This is the main website, right? And what I want to show you is, I think it's the introduction, installation, blah blah blah. basic usage, maybe it's that one. Yeah, you have here now this command which you can execute, poetry new, and then you have a name, poetry demo, and this name here tells poetry that you want to initialize a poetry demo project, which looks like this, and you can see that there is a pyportrait.toml file which shows you all the dependencies. But basically, if you have a pre-existing project like I did, I just went into the folder of the project and then copied poetry in it. And this will set up a process where poetry asks you which dependencies do you need. And what I find quite exciting is that it's not only asking you for the dependencies, but also for the development dependencies. You will see that in a minute, because let's see, what did I generate here? It's poetry.toml, and you see here poetry dependencies. It has Python, it has psutil, it has typer, also a thing I will talk a little bit about in the code. And then I have development dependencies, stuff I need when creating the code, but the typical user doesn't need. For example, Flake 8 or Black, isort, pre-commit. Well, I'm not really using that up until now, but maybe in the future. Pyland and PyTest coverage. Those are tools which help you to code, but you don't want to publish them or make your software dependent on that on a user use case, right? So you can do that independently. And for the virtual env, it's typically like this. You have a text file, requirements, and then you store just your packages in there. And you would have to have a requirements underscore dev.text for virtual env to do kind of the similar process. But here you have that in one file, and it's pretty good. But I don't want to tell you all the things which are in this. You can read it for yourself if you like. I will, as always, put the links into the description. But the main thing is that I was looking for, well, the goal of that all. It's virtual environments and stuff. That's cool, right? But what I really wanted to do is to be able to publish it to PyPy. Let me just type that here, PyPy. It's a Python package index, which whenever you install a stuff like pip install and then a package, it will look up here and see if it finds something. And for sure, there's no Hypermesh Lattice Mesher right now. But in order to make it as easy as possible for the user to just install the program I write, I want to publish that ultimately here on PyPy. And so what easier solution it is like using something like poetry. It's really easy. You just create a token and you build it, install it, you can test it, you create this token for the PyPy, and then you just say poetry publish. And that's so cool. I can't wait to do that, but I think the code is way too bad right now to be published. So it's still in alpha mode, and I think it will stay a little bit longer in that. And there's so many things to explore here. But before that, I want to just maybe go into two of the main things I'm using here in the development dependencies, because they're really important. So Black is a formatter. Well, let's start with Flake 8. Flake 8 is it's a linter. Linting means, well, I should have looked that up, but linting basically checks your code for errors, but not on a programmatic side of things, but maybe also that, but more concentrated, for example, on syntax. And is your line length not longer as X? Have you documented it properly? Are your imports formatted the right way? It's getting pretty frustrating. I think I've closed it, right? So Black, that's just a formatter. You can just search for Black and Python and you will find that. And in Visual Studio, you just tell it to, I think it's Python formatter. Well, not really, right? No. Let's see. There was something here in settings, so preferences settings, and then I think it's formatting provider or something. So Python formatting provider. Right. Python formatting provider, and you can choose from different styles. AutoPep 8 is the default one. I used black here. Yeah, so this is that. And I think I've closed it, right? Yeah, I've closed it. What a shame. Flake 8, which is the linter. And you can look that up here and see what it does. But if you're using it like I do in the poetry, you will pretty soon get to know it. Because linting is a hell of a horrendous job at the beginning. At least for me it was. Because I thought, well, I've written tests, right? The code looked fine to me. Then Flake 8 comes along the way and just beats my head until it's on the ground. Because I think I got a log of 200 lines of what's wrong in the code. And it took a long while to just sort it out. So, well, you have to also see that the linting can be too harsh. And so you can also, in poetry itself, you can create something like this. This will control what you're really linting for. So, for example, missing module docstring, it's too harsh sometimes. It will, if you let it on the standard default yeah, in a way, you will have to put a docstring in every file, and it must be at the top and stuff like that. So, and I deactivated a bunch of things, right? So this is the things which are done here. Yeah, and yeah, now the linting process. Well, how to do that automatically? It's another huge field of learning possibilities because yeah, you know, I'm still on the journey and I will forever be, I think. But you see here, and I close it again. Here. This is my project, right? Hypermesh Lattice Mesher. And what I did here now is I created a action, which is something, a process which gets launched on a conditional statement. That's pretty cool because, for example, you want your code checked whenever you push it upstream or do a pull request, for example. So, yeah, and here you see this is all the pilings and stuff. These were all the runs I did, right? Starting here. And let's say, just see how this looks like. Looks like this. You get a bunch of errors, right? See missing docstring, test element, doesn't conform to snake case naming style and stuff like that. You really joy. It's a joy. And you copy that and you go through there and you can also execute that locally, which is good because you don't want to push it all the time to your repository to check it. But I also found that if you do it locally, it's not always the same as on the remote. Because I don't know really why it is that, but I think it's all system dependent, right? So let's look into it a little bit, shall we? So Pylint, what does it do? It is that the workflows are saved into a folder like this, exactly like this, .github/workflows, and then you have pylint.yml, and this is basically what it's doing. And you see here the platform is also defined, right? So it's running on Ubuntu latest and stuff behaves differently than on my Windows machine. And this is just normal, I would say. And yeah, for me it was a problem that I named the class exactly as the file name, which you should never do. Even if they're different from upper lowercase, as far as I understood it, a Python file or process can only import a name once. If it's a submodule, all right. If it's a class, all right, but it cannot be the same name. So I renamed it. Maybe this also will get changed into the future because I did a simple elements and then the classes element, right? So it's just like this here. Here's my Hypermesh lattice package, and then you have data structure and here elements. So this is elements now, and it was element. And the problem was into the, I think, in the import and FEM file reader. So it has then set here from node, import node, and this is not possible. And depending on how lucky you are, it either first imports the module node, then you get an import error, or it imports the class first, and then it's all fine. So, but I'm going places. I have to come back a little bit. So if you want to check it locally, what you can do, right? The first of things you should do is, if you're doing that with Poetry, you're creating a virtual environment on the fly. And in order to activate that, you just, I think it's Poetry. No, it's not Poetry. You can just type activate. And this will activate something, but I don't know why it's saying base here. Because that tells me that it's on Conda, I think. There's another thing you should do. It's select interpreter. And the select interpreter, see, it's telling you something here, what you should do. And it's then Poetry. This is exactly what I want. So I selected that, and now I'm not sure if that's great, but I closed the terminal, and I just open a new one. And then there should be venv. Yeah, so this is it. So this activate does something here with the .venv, and there's bin and activate or something like that. And this will just activate the environment, which you are now in here. And you could now, for example, add a new dependency to your Poetry, right? So you could just say Poetry add something. I am not sure if that's working. I hope not, because I also have to. Yeah, it's not working because there could not be a package for something. But right, this is how you do it. Yeah, and if you want to add a development dependencies, just Poetry add /D and then just the package. So it's easy. And now you can just, for example, Poetry build. And it will build your Python project, right? So it's easy. And you also can Poetry install, which will install the thing you're doing here. And yeah, you see here Hypermesh Lattice Mesher. This is yeah, my little program. And this is also because maybe you're confused. Here's with dashes and here's with underscores. Why? The thing is, you specify a name in poetry.toml, like here, Hypermesh Lattice Mesher. And this is the name then of the software. But else you have here, for example, you can create a hook where your program will start then. And now we're coming into the typer stuff. Remember, I talked that I will talk a little bit about typer. Because one of my issues here in the GitHub repository. One of my issues was to do a proper command line tool. And command line tool, some command line tool which is pretty basic or pretty good. I don't know. It's my first pick is typer. And for what it's worth, I see that it's pretty cool. And it has some amazing documentation as well, really, with the little GIFs, which tell you how to run it, stuff like that. It's cool. So check that out. Now, I installed it. That means I can now use it. But I don't know if it's working like that. Let me check. Maybe you can do it like this. It should be doable. Yeah. See? I'm so happy with that. You see, here's a doc string, which I put into, I show you the code in a minute. And with that help, it's just telling me also which commands I do have. here it's mesh. So for example, if I just say mesh and then just give an empty string, it will go to the default model and do that. So this should work, right? So it's doing that, just canceling that. But yeah, so what did I change here? So I renamed the former Hypermesh Lattice Mesher as a class to main.py. And then I integrated typer here. App is typer.typer. And I have to give credit. Also, this thing with poetry just hooked me up on that one. So I think he at some point he points out his GitHub repository, and then I just looked a little bit into the code. But I think that's how you learn something in software. So it's also a friend of mine told me that. So it's no shame to look into other projects and just see how they are doing that. And so you have here Python EDA and main, and you see here that it just creates it like this. So app is typer.typer. And then you have a main here which launches the app. And then you have this flags here with app commands and stuff like that. So back to my little implementation of that. I have also this name equals name, then the app is launched, and then I have a callback function. The callback function usually in this case just provides me with the possibility to create a doc string. And this doc string is then just simply put into what you're getting when you just launch it with the flag help. So that's great, and it also makes that the mesh appear, because if the callback is not there, the mesh is the only command, and if you have only one command, it assumes that if you're calling the CLI, so CLI is a command line interface, I think. If you launch that with only one command, you don't have to specify the command, and then that can be confusing. I wanted to be able to just always specify the command, and this is why I use the callback. And the other thing here is just the main method now for the Hypermesh Lattice Mesher, which is then an app command. All right, so this is set, this is done, and I think that's about it. So you can test it, right, with poetry. You can yeah, I was talking about the linting stuff and how you do that locally. You can test it locally, and if you don't want to use your poetry reduced lintings, because now I will get an error if I do that. So it's just pylint, and you have to install a pylint before that. And then I think it's just the project name. In this case, it's the folder, Hypermesh Lattice. Oops. Lattice Mesher. Let's see if that's working. This will now, yeah. No module name type. Oh, I forgot to. Think I have to run it with Python. Did I? Ah. Hyper Lattice Mesher. Yeah, maybe one day. But for now it's Hypermesh Lattice Mesher. And also it's pay attention to that you have always the init files in all folders, because Python will not recognize a folder structure as a module if it's not that. What? Where's my command? Here. Your code has been rated 10 out of 10. Awesome, right? Sorry. Well, I thought I would be getting issues because I think, but I think now it has stored my limited. But shall we make a stupid mistake? I don't know, really. I fixed so many of those, but yeah, let's do a common one. Import pathlib. Unused import, right? This will get an error, I hope. Yeah, for sure. Let's even have as oh, I cannot do that. Path. Well, it's just that I wanted to show you how that looks like. I have to maybe look more into that. But you see here, you get an error like this. Wrong import order should be above something, and unused import. You have imported something and you never used that. And my score decreased. And it was starting really, I have to tell you, it started with, I think, 6 or so. And it made a way up. But it was kind of hard to get to that. So I think the Git graph also tells a story. Like I think I was doing here something which really, you know, Sunday. It's fun, right? For me, it's fun. It's really cool to do that stuff. And I was doing it and linting, and no, the linting process started not here, but I did the poetry and the data structure, and even made a commit with priorly switching to poetry. Did that. Maybe one day I want to virtual envs, want to use that, I can. And so here I just added the requirements.txt and stuff like that. Yeah, then I don't know what happened, but somehow I committed it. Like here, you can see locally it's committed. And then I made a stupid mistake because I could not push it. And then I checked out my main branch being this one. And then you heard me cursing, or you could have if you were here. Because I thought I would have to do it all again. I restarted it, looked into the Git GUI, tried to fetch the logs and see if there's a commit ID where I can revert to. Nothing there. It's nothing there. All right. Yeah, I think this is just bad luck. But then on the other side, it was just a good possibility to just reiterate and doing it once more. Therefore, poetry linting once again. So this is where I changed the stuff here for, well, you see there's so many files which are changed, but the thing is they're just restructured because I renamed the package. And what's definitely new was the Flake 8 something, yeah. For Flake 8, I think the maximum line length was pretty hard. And I just increased that because else you should 80 or 70 characters, make a new line, and then that can be not so readable. I don't know. I think it's rather unnecessary. 160 is too much, I think. I think I internally go with 120 with the black formatter. But yeah, so I was doing the poetry thing and then linting. And from that on, from 4 in the afternoon until almost midnight, I was concerned with linting, right? But so not always. I also make a break here, you can see, but linting, and then you just end up on GitHub, just praying that your code works. Not that one. I can tell you that was a job, eh? So I was committing it, and you see, the last one was pretty cool because I just had to fix one more line. So, wrong import order, right? But those stuff never showed locally. I think that's pretty amazing. And I was also doing that with relative imports, where I learned that this is not maybe such a good idea. Use absolute imports better. So I changed that and corrected the import order, and then you cannot believe how grateful and joyful it can be to just see a green check mark. To just see, oh, the linting was great. Oh, good. Okay. Well, linting is okay. And now I also have implemented some test code, which is basically doing the coverage. That means that every line of code you have should be tested, right? Because then you can make sure it's working as intended. But the thing is that I'm lazy, not really, but I was not focusing so much on coverage. But you can see now here where you are good and which things are not covered at all. like script builder Hyperview. Well, basically, this is not really used in the Hypermesh Lattice Mesher right now, but yeah, I definitely have to put up tests for that. Script builder, oh my god. I mean, that's a main method or main module. It's 0% tested. That's pretty bad. On the other side, FEM file reader, that's good. And nodes is pretty good. Well, that's a tiny class. And elements is pretty okay. Well, I have to improve that. Definitely, right? And I want to come back once more to this. It is here the Hypermesh Lattice Mesher, right? With this thing, sorry about that. I want to just go to the code and see once more the workflow. Because I think I didn't tell you all about it. So I told you about that it's running here on Ubuntu and it tests 2 Python versions right now. It's 3.8 and 3.10. And then it has different steps. And I'm not fully aware what every line of this code does, because you can automatically create it and then I just adapted it. But for example, that you load your cached virtual environment if it's there, and the poetry log file, that makes collaboration a lot better because your dependencies are then frozen. And so if you have the same log file, you know it's behaving like the same. And this install dependencies is like with every run here in this continuous integration, continuous deployment code, which is pretty the topic we are talking about here. With every run here, it will create or spawn a new machine with Ubuntu and virtual machines, right? And then run the things you have set here, because that's a fresh install and that's what you want to test it. You don't want to test it on your machine because you could have whatever installed, but a freshly new machine. And now you install the dependencies, right? Python -m, the pip install upgrade pip upgrades the Python package manager. Then it installs pylint because you want to lint it later on. It installs poetry. It configs poetry with the virtual environments and install poetry. Yeah, poetry install will instantiate the poetry on your project. Right, and then you lint it. Lint, I have done the things with black, so it's automatically not formatted, if I ever would have forgotten those. Then I run the poetry, flag 8. So this is the normal run if you do it with poetry run, and then you have your command, flag 8, and then you have your project, and you exclude, for example, the data folder, but I think it's not even checked in Git, so that's okay. Count, I don't know why I set that flag. Yeah, you have something with max complexity 10 and max line length you can specify it here. 127 seems good. And then you run the pylint, yeah, then you run the pylint method on your project and hope for the best. And this test code now creates your coverage of the code and puts it into a HTML file. Yeah. No, sorry, that's not right. I think it's coverage. It's also doing coverage for HTML. Not sure about that. But I think this one will execute the coverage. Yeah. So you see, it's still for me quite new. But I think it's pretty awesome. And I like to do it a lot. So there's a lot to learn, and I think it helps to create a better program. Because apart from the software architecture side of things, 2 things I want to stress out here, if you stayed that long. 2 things. The linting and process, it's tedious, it's repetitive, it's annoying, but it's worth your time. I have 2 or 3 mistakes which I caught with the linting, which I would have never caught if I just went down the journey. So it's worth your time. And yeah, so I think that's all for now. I wish you all the best. Thanks for watching. Thanks for staying that long. And If you are interested in more of those kind of topics, please let me know. I would happily do more of those. But this video is rather a video I also will use for myself to just go back and laugh at what stupid mistakes I made in the past, and to just remind myself also how you set up something like a project, which CICD, for example. So if you want more of that, just let me know. But in the meantime, I will just work on that as usually and hope to bring you new features to the Hypermesh Lattice Mesher very soon. All right, bye guys.